let's talk about consequences, in particular, logical consequences. Those are the ones you want to be using. When a child misbehaves and you need to impose a consequence, there are three kinds of consequences that you can use. Natural consequences, logical consequences, and illogical consequences. A natural consequence happens without you doing anything. The environment structures the consequence for you. Your child left his bike out in front without the lock. You told him be sure to lock it. He didn't lock it. The bike got stolen. Natural consequence. Bye-bye bike. An illogical consequence is one that is not related to the crime. It is one that you're structuring that makes no sense in the child's mind except that you're unhappy with his misbehavior. What we're aiming for are logical consequences, responses to misbehaviors that are directly related to that misbehavior. In order to have a behavior not happen again, and after all, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate something that's happened, not just once, but always and forever. The child needs to learn about that. It needs to make sense to him. There needs to be a cause and effect. And in a child's mind, when we use an illogical consequence, the only cause and effect that he sees is, I did this, it made mommy angry. And the idea, of course, is for the child to take responsibility for his behavior. In other words, when I do this, this consequence happens. That's what you get with a logical consequence. So let's say you go into little Jeremiah and you say, it's time to turn the computer off. And Jeremiah doesn't do it. And you go back in and you say, you know, I asked you to turn it off and you didn't do what I said. This is where an illogical consequence would be, okay, now you're not going to watch any television tonight. That makes no sense to the child. The logical consequence would be, you didn't turn off the computer when I asked you to. Now you can't use a computer today or tomorrow. Another example of logical consequences would be when you say to a child, you need to get your shoes on right now because we're leaving to go to school. And the child doesn't put his shoes on. And you go and remind him again. And then you say with your threat, if you don't put your shoes on, we're not going to Disneyland on Friday. There's a really good example of an illogical consequence. So I think you get it. Logical consequences are the ones that work because they make sense to the child.